Concord is an upcoming sci-fi 5v5 hero shooter game being published by Sony and is developed by Firewalk Studios. The game was announced last year and with its early trailer drew a lot of comparisons to being a Temu version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Initially I thought this game was going to be a single player experience, but it seems like they chose to go down the overly saturated hero shooter theme because apparently it's never been done before. But regardless of my hero shooter fatigue, I wanted to give this game a fair chance and I went into the open beta with no expectations and wanted to actually be surprised by it. And I was pleasantly surprised just by how god awful this game is. I know that it's still only the beta, but honestly the fundamentals of this game just aren't great, and I don't think this game is going to drastically change by the time it fully releases. Also, I nearly forgot to mention that this game isn't free to play. It costs $40, which already puts it at a disadvantage compared to other hero shooters out there that are all free to play. But let's get into the things that I don't like about Concord and the things that I think make this game pretty much dead on arrival. Let's start with the characters, or as this game calls them, the free gunners. Well, they're definitely different compared to other hero shooters. I mean, not every hero shooter has a vacuum rubbish tank character who uses the pronouns he, him.
You want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!
I couldn't give a rat's ass about what any of these characters identify as or what pronouns they use. It doesn't add anything to the gameplay, and if anything, you're putting yourself in a position to get bashed for putting these details into the game. No one cares about this, and it seems like it was only put into the game to satisfy the woke people that care about little things like this. Like I said, it doesn't add to the gameplay and seems like it's been put in just to check off some DIY checkboxes. Although it was actually useful for this character because I had no fucking idea whether he was a him or her. But let's actually talk about the characters in this game. Well, none of them are really all that memorable, which isn't great when your game revolves around them. Teo or Teo is basically a Soldier 76 clone that looks a little bit like Marty McFly. Then you have Lennox, who is similar to Cassidy or McRae, whichever one you want to call them. I will say that they all play differently from one another, but there wasn't one where I found myself enjoying them all that much. The speed at which you move in this game is also extremely frustrating. It feels like I'm playing with weights tied around my fucking ankles, especially when playing as a tank. I mean, look at how slow you run, and it's not even like you have that much more health compared to the other classes. DPS does move faster, but even then when compared to other games it feels slow and the movement overall doesn't feel fluid and satisfying. It feels extremely clunky to play. You do get the dodge ability with some characters which can be useful, but honestly it feels like they've made the movement slower just so they could put the dodge in as an ability. Roka seems to be particularly strong, mainly because of a jetpack and being able to dodge whilst in the air. That and her rocket launcher, which is a primary weapon. There doesn't seem to be any sort of synergy between characters like you have in Overwatch. Maybe because it's early days, but I didn't see one character complementing the other in any sort of way. And although it's a hero shooter and you'd think it would require teamwork to win games, it actually doesn't, and honestly the game feels more like a team deathmatch game even when playing the more team focused game modes. The time to kill needs to be faster too. When I was playing as Lennox, who has 6 shots in his revolver, it was taking me 2 mags to kill people unless I hit every single one of those 6 bullets. It takes you out of the action because of how often you find yourself reloading. And the same can be said for all the other characters. You'd dump nearly a full mag into someone and somehow they'd still be able to jump behind a corner and survive. It just doesn't feel satisfying or rewarding. And I'm not totally against a slow time to kill. I actually didn't mind it in the finals where many people thought that the time to kill was too slow. Or the same can be said for Apex Legends where the time to kill is significantly slower because of the different shield types. But in Concord I think it doesn't complement the gameplay in any way. So upping the time to kill would be a good change to make going forward. I found that you also don't regen health unless you pick up a heal pack or get healed by teammates. And I do understand that encourages teamwork, but I still think health regen should be in the game, even if it's slow or takes a while to kick in. Also, one thing I hate is why is the in-game HUD so fucking big? Even after lowering it to the smallest possible size, it still covers up way too much of my screen, and it's not something that I personally like. I mean, look at this when you play the domination game mode. A, B, C, it's like someone's vomited all over your screen. There is no need for all of this to be so big, and it can be quite distracting, especially when you have a lot going on your screen. Every time after you die you have to reselect your character, which gets super annoying, and having to listen to their voice lines each time just made it even worse. There is no need to have to choose your character every time you die, instead just do what Overwatch does, where you can change them or not when you die. You don't have to manually select them each time. I'm sure this is something that will get changed, but I am pointing it out as it's currently in the beta. There is a lot of customization on offer, which really doesn't come as a surprise. Unfortunately, you can't really customize your characters all that much as it is a beta. But I can imagine when the game fully releases, there'll be some challenges for you to do, and of course a store, and probably a battle pass. You have the job board, which is where all your daily, weekly and seasonal challenges are. Nothing new here, just your standard challenges, complete a challenge and earn XP or some kind of cosmetic for it. The game does require you to have a PlayStation account when playing on PC, which could put a lot of people off from trying this game, as we saw the backlash Helldivers 2 received when Sony tried to do the same thing with that game. It's hard for me to say what Concord is trying to be. It's not Overwatch 2 or Team Fortress 2. If anything, it's probably more comparable to Destiny 2 in the way the PvP plays. But the game overall feels very bland and uninspired, and it doesn't push the hero shooter genre in any new meaningful way. If anything, it's one of the most disappointing hero shooters I've played in a long time. What makes it even more sad is that Sony is actually charging for this game. I'm not quite sure who greenlit this game at Sony, but after all they did buy the studio making this game, so I guess they believed in it from day one. It's hard to like Concord because of how slow and unrewarding the gameplay is. The gameplay loop isn't all that fun either. Personally, I don't think there is a lot of hope for Concord when it comes out. A lot of that is due to it having a $40 price tag. People aren't going to splash that much money on this game. The open beta, as of recording this video, has peaked at 2.3k players in Steam, which is pretty bad for a new hero. Which is pretty bad for a new game that's coming out later this year. Usually there is a lot more hype, especially during the open beta. It just shows that people aren't that interested in this game, and having a price tag on it only makes it less accessible. Is Concord the worst hero shooter I've played? No, it has its moments at times, and making it free to play would probably benefit it quite a bit, but it doesn't do anything special or impressive or fresh. The hero shooter scene is extremely oversaturated, so if you're going to make a hero shooter, it needs to stand out from the rest and grip people's attention. Offer players something new and exciting that isn't already out there. Unfortunately, Concord doesn't do any of that, and unlike its counterparts, it's also not free to play. It feels like a cheap Guardians of the Galaxy knockoff, and even though they will offer new CGI cinematics each week to develop the story, I simply couldn't care less about them. Majority of players don't care about that either. They care about gameplay and the game being fun, polished, and that it offers something new. And Concord, unfortunately, doesn't do any of those things. Let me know your thoughts about this game and if you played it, whether you enjoyed it or are you in the same boat as me and many other people. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.